Okay, the X-Files fans, we are here today to talk about season 11, episode 2. It was titled This. I'm not sure if I missed the explanation for the title. If anyone out there knows, please tell us in the comments section why this episode was called This. Montgomery and Rob Licuria. And Rob, you liked this episode a lot more than the first one, right?
Yes, I did. Significantly more. It wasn't perfect and it had a lot of problems, but it was really much better, and I liked a lot about it. But specifically, I'd say my best part of it was just generally the chemistry, which I don't usually like using that word, but the repartee between Mulder and Scully, Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny was really, really on point this episode. I just like the way they interact. There's no that tension from the earlier seasons is gone. Obviously now they're so familiar with each other. They're like they've just been around each other for so long. They can just be themselves, and I love being with them when they're like that. So that's the part of the episode that I enjoyed the most.
And Danielle, you also like this one more than the premiere.
Yes. I mean, that's a relatively low bar to clear, but I did think this was a move upwards. It was nice. Yeah, I kind of like standalone X-Files stuff that's not quite as tied to the mythology, where it's where they get to be investigators and there can be an interesting, creepy, or sometimes even funny mystery. And this one, I would say, I really liked this this concept of this kind of digital afterlife that they're creating. Like, is this a good thing? One of the lone gunmen ended up in this digital afterlife and wants it shut down. I think the idea might even be too big for just this one episode. Like, it ends on this weird cliffhanger that I don't know if they're ever even gonna address again. But I did like the idea of it a lot.
Yeah, it was great seeing Langley back, and they mentioned the lone gunman, and they mentioned Deep Throat. I loved the scene in the cemetery, don't get me wrong, but I don't know how I feel about knowing Deep Throat's name. I kind of wish the camera had stayed on Mulder and Scully's face as they looked down and said, "Oh, I never knew his name till right now. Oh, look, he has a name." But then I wish we hadn't seen the tombstone. I don't know. It kind of ruins a little bit of his mystery. I mean, he hasn't been alive since season 1, so I'm probably the only one in the world who cares about this.
I care about it, but
I think
it didn't bother me.
Yeah, I think you have a point. I wasn't bothered by seeing his name, but I think there would have been something a little bit more poetic about them looking down and the camera just pointed up at their faces saying, "I never knew Deep Throat had a name before," and never revealing it to us. There would have been something kind of beautiful about that. I don't mind knowing his name. Actually, I've already forgotten his name, but so it's like I never saw it. It's been scrubbed from my memories, just like Langley has been scrubbed from the X-Files.
This episode was unique in that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Mulder and Scully were in every single scene. And that's rare, but I loved it. I loved getting extra Mulder and Scully time, especially since Gillian Anderson confirmed yesterday this is in fact her last season, which is very, very sad for me.
Yeah, that is very sad. I do like them being in all the scenes, and I liked, like, for example, there's a lot to love about this episode. It's like they were almost listening to what fans were going to say about the first one, how it was dated and it seemed irrelevant, and it was like this one was a bit more interesting and a bit more cutting edge. Like the beginning of the episode was kind of like a shootout, but with this really kind of interesting musical score in the background, and it was really kind of interestingly done, and it was there was a lot of suspense, and it was well done. And the shooter with the long curly blonde hair just looked like one of those hair metal bands, but like he looked like a corpse that had come out of a hair metal band, and it was just interesting the way they had done that, and it was kind of cool, and I liked that stuff. So there was because of that, we started off with that, and then the two of them kind of went gallivanting across the country to try to figure out what the hell was going on, and I love that. I want to spend some time with Mulder and Scully instead of spending time on this other silly kind of storyline that I don't care about.
Right, and we got to see Barbara Hershey again, who popped up last week. And do you think she's going to become a big player, or is it just, I can't tell if it's just maybe these 2 episodes in it, because, you know, at the end, whatever this organization is, they took all their stuff and they skipped town. Is that it for this conspiracy, or are we going to see more? I mean, we only have 8 episodes left.
Well, I mean, Barbara Hershey is it's a big enough name that I feel like, and that's a big enough conspiracy, like even this storyline tied into the whole colonizing space conspiracy, which I'm not a big fan of that story aspect. It feels a little out there even for the X-Files. But yeah, I assume, and especially since she got away, I assume we'll see her again at least a couple more times. Probably in the finale, certainly there will be some kind of payoff with her if we don't see her again until then.
So if I understand correctly, the idea of colonizing space is that it's just our consciousness that will colonize space and not our physical selves. Is that correct? It's a little confusing.
I couldn't quite tell. Like, it's either that or they're using that digital space, you know, as sort of their lab rats, their guinea pigs to kind of generate the technology for space exploration and colonization. So I'm not entirely sure.
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was like, yeah, they're using the digital slaves to set up the framework to allow these rich people to go and colonize space. It's the colonizing space stuff that I just kind of think, oh, okay, cool, great. But then when I think about digital slave stuff, I'm like, that's kind of interesting. That interests me. It's like an episode of Black Mirror that I watched just before this.
Which one? The
Hang the DJ. No, if you get up to episode 4, we shouldn't be talking about Black Mirror. This is about the X-Files, but episode 4 of Black Mirror is even better than the first one. It's incredible. It's about digital. Don't want to say anymore, but it's about, like, it's a romantic storyline, and it's very, very, very well done, and it's very X-Filesian in the way that it's done. And this is similar. It's about digital consciousness. Langley's stuck in there, and I love the scene when it's just his face, and it kind of cuts back and forth between the digital face and his real face, and he's like, help me, get me out of here. I'm basically a slave to these crazy people, and I don't want to be here. Like, he's just a digital copy of himself, but he's sentient, and I find that all of that stuff really interesting.
I had kind of an issue with that. I mean, I loved that scene, but the lone gunmen were always a trio. They did everything together. They didn't have secrets from each other. So they did this without the other 2, and that he apparently had a love interest that we didn't know about. It's kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, did they try to get the other 2 actors back as a trio, and they were all stuck in this, and the other 2 just weren't available? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, it is odd to have kind of a lone gunman storyline without, and they never even really addressed that. Well, I mean, they addressed the other 2, the existence of the other 2, but they never address why this storyline only involves Langley and the other 2 didn't know anything about it, presumably, or do the same thing. You know, I would assume the other lone gunman would have tried to talk Langley out of this weird, you know, conspiracy thing where he's going to be uploaded into some kind of mainframe. That's where the man is. Like, they wouldn't, you know,
right?
They're plugging him into the Matrix. I don't think the other lone gunman would have approved. I
loved the joke Scully made about Frohickey, how he looked 57 years old the day that he was born. That was really funny. Okay, so what are your worst moments? Daniel, you said you had a worst moment from the episode, right?
I have sort of a worst moment, and then kind of a trend that I'm not liking. So my worst moment is anything involving that the Russian mercenary. It felt very kind of mustache twirly, over the top in a way that didn't really fit with the show. And then the other thing that I had issue with is what I feel like is this season so far, the 24cation of the X-Files. Like, it always used to be subtle mystery, kind of suggestive, you know, eerie kind of stuff. And this season, it feels like they're becoming kind of like Jack Bauer outlaw action heroes, and I don't think that fits them as well. Like, there's always been action on the show before, but like the car chase last week, and now, you know, a shootout, fist fights, you know, it just feels too much action and not enough of the eerie kind of mystery that I really love about the show.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hope we'll get some more eerie stories, like monster stories and more subtle things in the weeks to come. I hope so. Rob, did you have a moment that just really annoyed you?
Probably the same. After the shootout, I thought, okay, that was cool. I enjoyed that. But then the punch out on the stairwell, I was like rolling my eyes, like, okay, here we go again. And I said that last week about 24. It felt like I was watching 24, and that's not a good thing for me. I think that's a really bad. That's not a compliment. And and the Russian guy as well. Every time he was on the screen, I was getting migraine just from the eye rolling. I'm like, oh my God, please hurry up and get off the screen. You're ruining it.
So that villain will not go down as one of the best villains of all time. That's what you're saying.
Definitely, absolutely not. So don't even bother including him in the gallery when you update it. But I agree that the X-Files for me was always a more cerebral experience. And so far, this has just been it's an event series for Fox, and I can understand why they're trying to make it more action-oriented, but they're doing us a disservice. Well, let's get back into some more eerie, suggestive, you know, cutting edge kind of sci-fi stuff. That's what we really want to see.
Mm. Skinner was back this week, and I just love Skinner every time he's on screen, especially when he's kind of at odds with Mulder and Scully. I like the dynamic of do we trust him? Do we not trust him? Although I think at this point, the audience knows we're supposed to trust him. It's been 25 years, for God's sake.
Yeah, and I feel like the poor Mitch Pileggi, you know, he keeps having to play out these scenes, and it was true in the original series too, where he's trying to be sympathetic, and yet half of his dialogue is, "I can't tell you, let it go." You know, it's like he should actually, after 25 years, be able to just tell them, just tell them they can handle it. They've been through worse.
I know. And do we want to talk about the X-Files being digitized now, and that, you know, the whole world has access to them, which is interesting? And what did you guys think about that?
Well, I'm looking forward to the X-Files audiobook of all their case files, and, you know, downloading it on my Kindle. That'll be fun. Yeah. I think it's just digitized for maybe within like intra-agency kind of things. I don't know if it's like you can download it from Amazon, but yeah, I kind of like the idea. I mean, it is 2018. They should have digital records of their case files.
Yeah, that didn't bother me too much. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, well, I don't know if you're going to be able to purchase it on Hulu or anything, but like I did like the references to how, you know, there's so many intelligence agencies and there are so many threats, and then it kind of led into the X-Files being digitized later on. And I think, yeah, all of that stuff's okay with me. It makes sense in this day and age that everything would be at people's fingertips, given there are so many agencies who would trying to stop huge threats to the US and the world.
I was kind of like just a little bit annoyed with the continuity there, because after Mulder and Scully left in 2002, Doggett and Reyes took over. So why didn't Skinner mention, you know, after you guys left, oh, with these other guys kind of or something? Like, they didn't even mention them. And I asked the producers yesterday, there was a TCA panel, and I said, are we ever going to see Robert Patrick on the show again? And they said that there was a scheduling issue because he's on Scorpion. So hopefully if the X-Files comes back for season 12 in a couple of years, we will see Doggett again.
And then brand new, since there would be no Scully, brand new like sexual tension this time between Mulder and Doggett, and you know, so that'll definitely bring the show into the 21st century.
Wow, yeah, that'll be very 2020. Like by then, that's what we would expect from a TV show. So that sounds very exciting.
All right, I think that's it. Unless you guys have any final thoughts on episode 2.
No.
But
just looking forward to more spooky, less, you know, punch bang bang, you know, just, you know, more like the original Star Trek, less the J.J. Abrams reboot kind of deal. Like, you know, it's not an action movie. Give us the kind of thinking man's X-Files.
I want a creepy monster. That's what I want more than anything. We just ran a poll at Gold Derby, and the readers of our website, they picked their best monster of all time, and it was Eugene Victor Toombs from season 1, which is a very good choice. Yeah, I want to see more creepy guys like that.
I want to see another Tombs, or I want to see a fluke woman.
That's All right. Thank you everyone for watching. We will see you next week.